The Sum of the Matter, Episode 11, Part 2, Deconstructing Noah and the Flood. In case you're new here, a quick reminder that this is Part 2 of Deconstructing Noah and the Flood. If you missed Part 1, we encourage you to begin there first. Before we pick things back up again in Genesis 8:15, let's take a moment for a quick recap. In Part 1, we read from the ancient text that Noah was a man to be right and complete in a dysfunctional world that was falling into decay more and more with each passing day. God chose to save Noah and his wife, along with his 3 sons and their wives, and pairs of all creatures from the flood, which God used to destroy everyone and everything else. No one and no thing ate one another while they were in the ark, because they were all herbivores at that time, and that through this event, mankind would somehow have rest from the cursed ground that had taken place back in chapter 3. We haven't discussed that fully just yet, but we'll get there soon. Now we find ourselves in the part of the story where Noah is told that it is time to leave the ark. Here is our root word translation, starting in Genesis chapter 8, verse 15. We encourage everyone to follow along with their preferred translations, and please take note of the differences. To arrange God, Noah. To say, to go out, to apportion, ark. You, woman, sons, woman, sons. All to live, which all to be fresh. To fly, beast all to glide swiftly upon the earth. To go out, to wriggle the earth. To bear fruit, to increase upon the earth. To go out Noah, sons, woman, sons. All to live, all to glide swiftly, all to fly, all to glide swiftly upon the earth. To abrade, to go out, to apportion the ark. It's not too difficult to picture what's going on here. God has told them that it is time to go out of the ark and to divide and allocate upon the earth, to bear and to increase. Makes sense. Next, to build Noah, to slaughter animals to exist, to take all beast clean, all to fly clean, to ascend to slaughter animals, to breathe, to exist, to breathe, to rest. Before we finish verse 21, we want to point out some of the big differences as we begin to find them here. Just like when they all got on the ark and God told Noah to take more pairs of the clean animals than the others, we now see yet again a distinction. But wait, I thought the law wasn't given yet. Why would he need clean and therefore unclean animals? But what if mankind had a law from the beginning? Why would he need more of the clean animals? I think it's possible that the reason is twofold. Yes, it could be because they were to be a gift to God, but also, these are the animals that will now be approved to eat, and so they would need more of them so that they could increase quicker and be more plentiful. That way, they didn't go extinct after Noah's first meal. I also want to highlight that in our root word translation, in verse 21, we see the same root as Noah, or rest. The modern translations read sweet or pleasant here, as if it's describing a smell or aroma. But when you strip everything down, it's hard to see the same thing. In fact, because the root word for rest is found here, I would beg to argue that this section must have some serious significance, one that would be very problematic if it was lost in translation. Remember, back in chapter 5, we were given a future clue, describing that Noah, or rest, would come from the toiling to eat of the ground. A few months ago, when I was studying the modern translation, it was easy to see that the rest that came was the giving of animals for them to eat. Before this time, I don't believe it was permissible. Everything was an herbivore, and it was a lot of work for man to live this way. We are told that Abel gave God a firstling from his flock, but nothing is said there that would imply that they were omnivores, eating both herb and meat. After the flood, however, God gives man animals for food. Now, I don't know about you, but my husband and I have tried our hands at both gardening and animal husbandry, and we have been far more successful with the animals than we have the veggies. Yes, we have experienced challenges with both, and unfortunately, we have experienced losses in both too. But for the most part, without trying to oversimplify, the animals do seem to be more of a set it and forget it. Make sure they have food and water, and they pretty much do the rest. The garden, on the other hand, is way more physically demanding. Prepping the ground, planting the seed, weeding the beds, harvesting, preserving, etc. And it seems that at a moment's notice, due to weather, drought, bugs, you name it, everything can be completely wiped out in very little time, resulting in a complete and total loss. But we have never had that happen with our animals. Again, not to say it couldn't. I'm sure there are diseases that could take out an entire flock very quickly, but typically the losses we have experienced there have been only one at a time, and usually it is one of the young. But regardless, why would the modern translation gloss over the first mention of rest found here after the flood? These are questions we should be asking. Continuing on in verse 21. To say to exist, God heart, not to add, to make light, to repeat ground, to pass over Adam, that to be straightened, heart, Adam, dysfunction, to shake off, not to add, to repeat, to strike, all to live, which to do, to repeat all days, earth, to sow, to cut off, to chill, to be hot, to clip off, to pull off, day to fold back, not to cease. This section is talking about how God will not add to make light the ground again. This goes back to the consequences for Adam's disobedience. God changed something with man's relationship with the ground that made everything more work. Now, he is saying that he will not repeat that. A huge difference is seen next. Modern translations read, "For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, and I will no longer smite all living things as I have done." This just doesn't make sense to me. If God is acknowledging that the plots of man's heart are evil from his youth, then wouldn't the earth just fall into complete dysfunction again, just like before the flood? Then what would God do about that? But what if the meaning of the ancient text was what we have translated? That to be straightened, heart, Adam, dysfunction, to shake off. This makes it sound like it is possible to straighten our hearts, and that it is possible to shake off dysfunction or evil, to choose to do better, to choose what is balanced and functional and right. Which leads us to chapter 9. To kneel to God, Noah and sons, to say, to bear fruit, to increase, to fill the earth, to fear, to prostrate, to exist, upon all to live the earth, upon all to fly, to be lofty, all which the ground, all to move rapidly, to roar, hand given, all to glide swiftly, which it to live, to exist, to eat, to spit, to glisten, to give all. Now in the modern translation, the idea is of the fear of man being upon the animals. But is that really what is going on here? What if the fear and prostrating was to be man's position before God, kneeling? This is also the section where the animals were given to man as food. It is hard to see for certain here with the root word translation, but with the wording found in verses 20 and 21, and now here as well, I think it is okay to say that they were given the animals for food. And finally, let's see if we can make some sense out of this last section for today. This is where modern translations say not to eat flesh with blood, and where an account for blood shed will be demanded both from beasts and man. Honestly, I'm struggling here with both of these concepts. I don't think it aligns with reality that God demands an account from a beast who kills a man. How would that be possible? Now, it is plausible that he could demand it when a man kills another man, but we also don't have any proof of this currently in existence without using the afterlife or the next life as proof of God's judgment. It would appear that there are people who get away with murder all the time. So, what else might this be telling us? Set up to be fresh, to breathe, to be still, not to eat, to set up, to be still, to breathe, to seek hand all to live, to seek hand Adam, hand man brother, to seek to breathe Adam, to spill forth, to be still Adam, Adam, to be still, to spill forth, that to shadow God, to make Adam, you to bear fruit, to increase, to wriggle in the earth, to increase. Is it possible that the continuing theme is of rest? To breathe, to be still, sounds like rest to me. Is it possible that when it says not to eat, to set up, or you could even say erect up, could this be pointing to a potential negative outcome if man becomes unbalanced with this new gift? That some kind of dysfunction could happen if they eat to set themselves up? We know from history that we have the tendency to push the limits too far to the point of extinction when it comes to the many benefits or byproducts from animals. The whole point of giving them the animals for food was for rest. Let me say that again. I believe the whole point in God giving mankind animals for food was so they would have rest. Then we see this whole hand portion. God gave everything into Adam's hand to protect, to guide, to rule over. It was Adam's responsibility whether to be a good steward or a bad one, that they were to increase in a way that was restful and in balance because they were made in the image or shadow of God. So let's try and sum a few things up. When they left the ark, everything was to bear fruit and increase. They were to slaughter the clean animals to exist, to breathe, and to rest. They were to straighten their hearts and shake off dysfunction. They were to kneel before God, prostrated and with fear or reverent respect. And they were to do so all in a way that was balanced and functional for all of life in a restful way. Simply put, yet again, I think you could say, fear God and obey all that He commands.